Welcome, everybody, to This Week in X, presented by Crushing Comics for New Mutants number 20, out on the 21st of July, 2021. In this issue, the kids get together to reenact Weekend at Bernie's using the dead body of one of their friends. Stay tuned for more here on This Week in X. Comedy classic, This Week at Bernie's. I remember the first time I watched that. You know, when you're a kid, like, things are so much more funny and heightened. I remember like rolling around on the floor when they had Bernie, spoilers, towing behind the boat, but with the buoys kind of knocking. If you've never seen Weekend at Bernie's, it's just like a terrible late 80s, early 90s comedy film. But as a child, because now my kid has those kind of like scream laughing reactions, and as much as I'm like tone it down, I'm like, I remember those days. So anyway, by way of introduction, we're here to talk about New Mutants number 20, and it's going to come with spoilers about New Mutants, about the X-Men lines, and about comedy slapstick films of the 1980s and 1990s. So you have been warned. Special note today that Freya has lost her voice, but she did not want to miss the conversation because X-Men is better when it's read together. So she's going to just be a presence here, a visual presence, and occasionally she might slip us a note across our desks here to read on her behalf. For New Mutants number 20, she approves
that message.
She approved all of that. Yeah,
the PSA. She's like, oh.
For New Mutants number 20, we're going to go around and give initial reactions, starting with Tyler.
This issue continues to build on what came before, and even though it is sort of a middle act issue, I think it still manages to pack in quite a lot of things while moving certain subplots along. Lean's art continue to impress and manages to be different and yet works with the style of Reese's such that it is not jarringly different. I give this a 3.5 Shirley Temple out of 5.
Harry, what about you? What's your reaction this week?
It's definitely a solid issue in terms of plot and character interaction, all that fun stuff. But I really do enjoy Lynn's art a whole lot. One of the things that annoys me most with modern comics, and sometimes it can't be helped, where you have a major A-list artist who draws your book, but inevitably cannot keep up, and then it is kind of phased out for an artist that is not up to snuff. So it's very normal for there to be a B artist in series, and it's just great that there's one who's as solid and kind of expressive and interesting as Lynn's. I think it complements Rice's art really, really well, and I kind of prefer it in some places. So for me, the story's been the art this week, and it's definitely kind of got this macabre kind of almost spooky feel that I'll get into later. So I'm going to give it a 3.75 80s comedies out of 5.
All right. Freya is now going to visually react, and any interpretation or reading of that needs to be done, Tyler will contribute to the group.
What we said.
We did it, man. We did it. We're the best.
We read her mind. She basically is like, done.
Okay. I can't lie. This was pretty bad for me. I think if I can focus on the good parts of the art, I like that Lynn is growing. Like I see Lynn doing some really, really good stuff on art. And I think there's points on art that was like a little too loose, but I just feel like, we're still early in their career as a sequential artist, and I don't hold that against them. This is not somebody who's been in the game for 3 decades, who's given me an underdrawn page. This is somebody who's just playing with page layout and things like that. And I'm sure we can get into that. But I mean, there's one point where Karma was popped out of the panel walking across them, which is really cool. But then the way she's positioned, she's like standing on her own face. I'm like, that's a really cool page layout, but you will work to find better ways to use that in the future. And so I can't like hold against it. But this to me has all of the worst qualities of Vita Illa's writing, and it's why I haven't really liked them in the past. I think that even when you get them into an arc setup, they kind of just meander. I don't think this whole plot of taking the kids on this nonviolent mission to an island and uncovering this mutant, I think it was like way too many pages. I think the Gang of Kids plot is feeling repetitive. I think the Rain plot has gone on too long and it's not rewarding. If this was not an X book, this would be my drop week for this book. And it was my favorite X book. So it's kind of like, I'm really having trouble caring. You got to get to the point eventually.
It's funny how we've all kind of like, or at least Peter, you and I have both been like, at times been just like, wow, are we ever getting to the point? But then sometimes I get sucked back in, and it's been interesting. Yeah.
Well, I think before we go into, we are going to do this bring your own point style, but does anybody have any other art moments that they want to talk to? Just because our bring your own point tends to be a little narrative. Is there anything about the art that you want to dig into?
I love the way that Warpath is drawn in this, because he is just like this massive action figure of a character with like these huge shoulders, and it's a bit less realistic and a bit more just cartoony, which I love it when books do that kind of thing. It really just kind of struck me in the moment like this is such like exaggerated torso that
Yeah.
I thought was really fun.
I really like when and this is when I say a lot of times when I say that's good cartooning.
Hmm.
What I mean by that is like, and the difference between me saying good cartooning and illustrating, although it's all the same practices. To me, I think cartooning does some kind of shorthand things about character design, about motion, about how all these things that kind of gives you the message without always necessarily being super realistic. And I think a really great thing that cartoonists do is they just give some of their characters visually distinct body shapes that are maybe like a little bit ridiculous on their
Yes,
surface, but
yes.
it lets you always be like, that's what that character always looks like. And I think this kind of jumbo shoulders, slightly tiny head, it's not
Hmm.
cartoon-ish. That's not what I don't think that's what Harry and I are saying. It's cartooned in a way that
Yeah.
Warpath is visually distinct, and he's not just kind of like random dark-haired mutant. And I think that's really clever. And I think if you look throughout this issue, Lynn does that on a couple of different mutants. I love their Rainboy. I love their
Hmm.
Cosmar. I even like their
Hmm.
Rain, who's kind of like really muscled and has these really like muscly shoulders. I think there's like a lot of really great physicality going on with this art, which is, and I also love the Daken. So even
Yeah.
though I thought there were some weak art points, this is why I'm actually kind of really into it, even though there's a couple weak points, because
Hmm.
try stuff, do stuff. It's like when Reese did that page with kind of faded out to the pencils on the sides. Like I'm always going to be into an artist trying new stuff. That's just cool.
Yeah, it's a visual medium, and you said it the best with just like it's good to have character proportions and kind of almost silhouettes be different in big ways to differentiate them better, and it also can kind of reflect their character and personality better. Like
Yeah.
Warpath is a character you can depend on. He looks it when you see him. It's great.
Yeah. Tyler, you're one of the big fans of Linz's art here. Anything to that you want to add before we go to bring your own point?
I think you guys have added, like, I mean, have said a lot of these things. Visually, I think is 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 very I think it's really stylized in sort of a way like you guys mentioned, in a cartoon way, and not in a, you know really stylized, childish, or
Hmm.
or difficult to read way. And For some reason, I think this issue didn't strike me as strong as last issue, as the
Yeah.
gala issue. I think the gala issue, Lean's work is like exceptional.
Yeah,
He,
I think that one really, they were like, I'm going to be
Yeah.
on a big stage. I'm going to
yeah,
bring my A game. And this
exactly.
is kind of like, this is like, wow, monthly grind is hard, but who knows?
Yeah,
Linz, if you're
I
listening
just
or watching, we do really love you and we
yeah.
look
yeah.
forward to more. The other thing I'll say
Mhm.
is, adolescents are kind of hard. I think sometimes people just draw them as miniature kids, or like then you get
Mm,
like the Mark Bagley effect where they're just small but
uh,
with big heads, or some people just
yeah.
draw them as adults. And they're really proportioned in fun ways here. Adolescents have weirdly proportioned bodies in different ways, right? Some of them look like weird little spark plugs. Some of them get really thin and wiry. Some of them,
Hmm.
their shoulders are growing like faster than their
Hmm.
feet. And I think
Hmm.
you can see that. And I love the way that he's drawing Scout. Like she kind of looks like an adolescent kid instead of looking
Hmm.
like a teen or like a little child. And I just think that that's really good art. So
Yeah.
now we are
Yeah.
going to transition into what we like to call bring your own point. So we're not going to dissect everything about this issue. We're going to dissect the things that we think mattered the most. And if you have different things, please sound off in the comments. But we are going to start with Tyler, who is going to bring his own point about this issue. Tyler, what should we focus on?
For me, I think I would like to talk a little bit about Karma and Rain's chat, um, because I feel like in that chat, I feel technically Rain is not wrong, even though she should know where CN is coming from, given
Hmm.
the history of the New Mutants, the original the old the original New Mutants with Farouk. Um, so but the thing is this: the reason why I think Rain is not like really wrong is because, well, let's put it the other way. Like I feel for Rain because I have been that person before, that like the irrational, angry person towards my friends, even though if they are, even though they are only trying to help. So in that sense, that part just struck a resonant note with me.
Yeah, being irrationally kind of upset or just kind of like unfair to your friends in that kind of way, that's like a very human thing. And I think this book does well at not letting her off the hook in how she's portrayed, but
Mm-hmm.
not making it so extreme that like you don't root for her. Like I'm really still like I'm not like annoyed by Rain in any sense in this. I'm just more like, okay, you're going through it. Clearly, a lot of your character is angst
Mm-hmm.
XYZ, but I understand what's happening here. And this book really does excel at like conversations and interactions where both sides are a little right, or at least have like
Mm.
some kind of salient point to make. So it's not my favorite part of the book, but I get what you're saying, which is like there is like a humanity to this. That's some I think some good writing.
The thing to me that's interesting about this Rain Sean scene is this idea of like you I think it's wrong to think that everybody knows when they're being the villain in somebody else's story. I think that that's, everybody assumes that when people act badly or mean or whatever, that they know they're being mean, they know they're being terrible. But that's just not reality. Sometimes you're trying to act in your own best self-interest. Sometimes you're trying to act in other people's best self-interest and you're being villainous. And I think that this is an interesting example of like both sides of this conversation are trying to act in not only their own best interest, but kind of in the best interest of the other person in the
Yep.
conversation. And I think that's very real. I think it's a boring plot to play out here. I think it's the same thing we saw Rain play out with Danny already. I
Mm-hmm.
think that like we've had enough issues of Rain kind of just hitting the same point of like she's frustrated with a hammer. Like give us something to work with. I think
Yeah.
that it's a frequent problem I have with Vida Ayla's writing. Rain needs to grow
Yeah.
up, as Free is saying.
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
A frequent
Freya
Freya.
said
problem I
that.
have with Vida Ayla's
Yeah.
writing is that like they write really good, really human conversations, but sometimes it starts to feel like the whole book just is becoming, I know what these characters would say to each other in real life. They
Mm.
would say this, I will write it. And then like 8 issues go by and you realize that the story is just totally gone out the window so that everybody can react totally like humanly to each other. And
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes that's
Mm,
used to great effect, like in Children of the Atom 1 and 2. But
mhm.
I remember reading their live wire series for Valiant, and it was very much this. It was this like cool, thrilling espionage plot, and it was people just like arguing over their feelings in every single panel in a repetitive way. So I don't want to keep kicking at this, but it really
No,
bugged me.
I
and
mean,
Freya
Freya
had a
also have a
yeah.
note to add is that she thinks that Rain has to grow up to catch up with the rest of her New Mutant cohorts because the original New Mutants have all grown up and all have moved on from this teenage angst kind of um, period. And even though
Mm.
Rain was the youngest, it is about time that she catch up. And I, 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 I mean, I don't have any defense for that because I totally agree.
Ooh, I can defend that actually. I
Hmm.
think Rain is being the most grown up one in a way here. She's worried about her child. She has other things to be concerned with other than their like petty hand holding trips to Otherworld. Like, here's somebody who's actually been through stuff compared to some of them who's actually worried about another person instead of just themselves. And they're all just so self centered that they're like,
Mm.
oh, we had to go on our hand holding trip to Otherworld, but I'm sure you're probably fine. You've been through hard stuff too, right, Rain? Like, that to me rings true. Rain is
Yeah,
it's
it's the
okay.
way
In
that she
house, she
comes
reacts. She has
off
to grow up.
in
But
Yeah.
execution. Yeah,
yeah, I do. I think
I get what you're
that's
saying.
interesting here. Like, there's a divide between how much growing up Rain has been forced to do as a character, and then how well she can hold the space of emotional maturity when she's pushed for conflict. I think that's interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
All right, Harry. Welcome to Bring Your Own Point. It's your first go round. Are you ready?
My
Have we?
first time. I
Okay.
think I'm ready. All
Okay.
right.
What is
So
your point that you would like to bring to us from this issue?
what kind of most struck me, what I enjoyed about this issue, is really how this book, this issue in particular, really puts a much bigger plot on this Lost Club, as they're calling themselves, where it feels like we've kind of had snippets and dalliances, and obviously they've been a big part of the Shadow King with the Shadow King and what have you. But this was an issue where it was really about the four of them kind of on a little adventure together, and I was kind of impressed with how that didn't really feel like a drag to me and was actually more like the best part of the issue. Because I mean, to me, this really feels like a Stephen King influenced story where it starts off with them finding a dead body and then going on this walkabout adventure throughout the island. You even have the data page is pretty clearly the Lost Club is, I feel like, a pretty obvious nod to the Losers Club and it's, and just the fact that like, the fact that they are, and there are, ethical concerns I'm sure we're about to get into, but just the co-opting of a dead body to make it kind of move and speak is like, you know, on its surface at the least, it's very macabre and kind of, creepy, kind of weird, and like that very much fits in with this Stephen King feeling. I might be reading into it, or I might like Stand By Me more than I should, but like I think it's really cool in that way. So that was the part I was most impressed by.
I mean, I
I,
don't disagree with that. The the thing that struck me the most is No Girl's vocalization of her objection, right? Because I have been the champion for No Girl's getting her body back, because she's like, because it's really through no fault of her that she lost her physical body, and she pointed it out here. And it's like, those mutants don't even care about us, and gave us, I mean, yeah, they even gave me a no girl name, though to be fair, the name was given to her, like, when resurrection was not a thing. So so yeah, but I feel like they should have taken care of her, like, almost from the get-go. Like, after you resurrect all the mutants that are supposed to be the A-listers, she should be the first one on the list, and not, and not ignored, in a sense.
that's really near to the point that I want to talk about. So I'll pull out a different detail and then I'll just roll into that, which is that
Mm-hmm.
I really think that this is the right thing to do with New Mutants, and I think this is the good urge to kind of show, and we've discussed this before, the intergenerational conflict between these slices of generations in New Mutants and how they react to each other, and even within this group, the difference between like Anil and No Girl, who lived through all of that Academy X bus blowing up kind of era stuff, right? No Girl's of that vintage, and well, actually, No Girl's Morrison. I can't even remember now.
Morrison.
Yeah, No
Morrison.
Girls Morrison. So that vintage, that's from Academy X kind of
Mm-hmm.
time. And then Newer Mutants too, but they're the same age, but they have different experiences, and then playing with that same thing within the New Mutants teams. I know that it's also very Stephen King derived, but it makes me think of Stranger Things and how there's kind of like the older teens and the younger kids, and they get split up and mixed up in different ways, and it's
Mm-hmm.
fun to watch them bump up against each other. And I think that's the way to keep a New Mutants book with that title alive. And I think you see a lot of comics publishers doing that now and kind of figuring out that that's the right formula.
Mm-hmm.
We have Strange Academy at Marvel. We have, which is a little bit more school oriented, but then at DC, they have Teen Titans Academy, which is also playing with this kind of stack of generations. And I think that very kind of Stephen King blending in the coming of age with the people who maybe came of age already, and that there's a little inherent conflict about the loss of innocence that comes with it, no matter
Yeah.
how the innocence was lost. Is it because you've been without a body for years? Is it because you had to grow up hard and you had a child early? Is it because you were abused? Is it because of any other reason that made you kind of have to grow up a little bit too fast and deal with adult things, and then you scrape those things against each other? So I think that's the best way to do kind of a mixed generation teen oriented book. But the point that I wanted to bring was that No Girl point, and the way that the No Girl point interacts with the Scout point, because they're clearly upset that their friend is dead, but they have this very adolescent reaction to it, which Videla has built up to for several issues, which is, well, we can't just tell everybody that she died, because if they just take the body away, we're never going to get her out of the resurrection process. So it kind of like turns into the plot. But then No Girl inhabits their bodies. They've been practicing body switches, but this gets really interesting because it makes it real for the first time. They've just been using these discarded bodies of people who've already been brought back to life, so they haven't really dug into the consent and to Scout their friend, right?
They think she is.
But then they
think
just
she
treated her
is.
really horribly because they're part of like
Yeah.
Amul Farouk's after school club.
Well,
And
I think they're. I don't want to be reductive. I think they're being dumb kids. Like, I feel like, and I'm always like keen to like give that a pass. Like, kids make bad choices and often treat people weird, but like there's like very much like a purity to their reactions. You're like, Scout's our friend. We can't, da 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 da.
now we
Like,
remember all the good, everything was good. They were all good
yeah,
times. We didn't mean to bully her.
they don't know her popularity. Yeah, I guess
You
not.
know,
I
with
just
with readers, you mean?
yeah.
She's more popular than all the rest of them
They're
combined.
there really was like a childlike like kind of feeling to those conversations that I kind of bought, because again, it felt like it. Anyway, carry on.
No, I think that's a great point. And part of my fascination with it is then we get into this interesting consent issue of all the bodies they've used already have been people who have been resurrected, like,
Yeah.
when they've tried it, I think, if I'm remembering the story right. But here they have this person whose body they're piloting because they want to resurrect her, but there's no kind of, her consciousness doesn't have a say. She doesn't have a home right now. And No Girl if anyone, should kind of understand that. And so it brings us to this really interesting moment where like No Girl is saying the stuff that Scout has wanted to say to Dakin, but it's also kind of the things that No Girl has been wanting to say to everybody all this time. And it's like, I feel like if we hadn't had so many other here are the characters saying their feelings in a narrated way, kind of conversations in this issue and last issue and the issue before, that really would have hit more for me, because I was like, wow, what an interesting moment to kind of give a body to the bodiless and to give a voice to the voiceless and kind of to spin around a circle. But I think the impact was just a little bit lessened because it felt like it came so late in this issue after so many other kind of scenes that I don't know that I got as excited about it as maybe as it warranted.
Well, my pulse spiked a bit more after those kind of more boring scenes, to be honest. I was more like, oh, good, we're back. We're into something. Like, I found it interesting. I mean, yeah, it was just like an interesting conversation with Doc, and it's just like a really, truly just bizarre kind of situation and context for that to go back and forth. And maybe I don't want to come off uncaring or not like fully locked in, but just like I don't really consider the ethical issues of like No Girl taking that body, because like it's, maybe this is me getting way too much about myself. Like, I just view this as like an empty vessel. Like, I didn't really, at this point, Scout is elsewhere. And, maybe there's more to that than I've considered, but it just seemed more like, well, this is just a unique way to give the scene some more energy and also kind of have No Girl kind of have her moment to express herself in a more human-like way. But again, I don't want to come off insensitive to
I mean,
people.
they did swap body, like in a roundabout way,
Freya's point is, but they are the ones who are obsessed with the idea of bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
Well,
but that goes out the window when it's convenient, right, Freya?
I think you can make the case that these kids are not very coherent in their beliefs, and maybe might be the most heroic people on Krakoa, which circles back to they're dumb kids, and I'm okay to give like dumb kids a pass. But
yeah, but I mean, the thing is that I'm not buying Eno being there, because Eno is kind of like slightly more senior. Well, actually, no Girl is kind of almost the same level as Eno. So my point is moot. Sorry.
They're written kind of childlike in this. That's just kind of like I don't have enough like continuity with them to question how well.
Asks,
I mean, that's
how long. Question is, how long do you give them that benefit of the doubt of? Well, to me, it's like, is this good? As I often say, good comic books forgive everything. If the comic is good, if they're being little shits and the comic is unmissable, then you can forgive it for years. We've forgiven plenty of stupid characters for years in the name. We all read Saga, right? Those people were all terrible, but the comic was amazing.
Well, they're not. They haven't been posited as the main heroes. These are like Farouk's kids that somehow get like their own little adventure. So I'm not sitting here like, oh, I'm not trying to like view them as like the protagonists of a sense. They're just more like the dissenting argument, I guess, that have their own time to shine in a way. I don't know. I'm a little muddled right now, but I think you guys get what I'm saying.
I'll say one more thing, and then I'll let Tyler wrap us up here. Is that I think that people, me included, get a little bit confused, or a lot confused, about the idea of wanting characters to react the way that they would react to make the story better. Like everybody has to be perfect in a story. Nobody can be assholes in a story. Like, that's not productive. The story you write about them is productive. So if they're going to be like asshole little snothead kids, the question then becomes, yeah, but what are you doing with that, right? And if you're doing fascinating stuff with that every single issue, then they can be assholes forever. It's why people watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But if they're all assholes and it's not interesting at all and just everybody's mean and there's no progression, then it kind of becomes like, maybe this would be more interesting if one of them wasn't an asshole and like the plot could develop as a result of that. So I really think that people get a little too caught up in like the wanting to adjust the morality of the characters because they want to read about good people all the time, and wanting to adjust the morality of the characters because they feel the plot is getting boring. Because I a lot of times come right out and say, I don't like to read books about like the asshole main character who gets a one over on everybody. Not because I think all characters should be good, but because I've read enough of those. Like, if you're not going to show me some kind of progression or change, I'm like, okay, I get it. The asshole doesn't have a heart of gold yet. Like, great. Can I skip to issue 497 where the heart starts getting a little bit golden, some gold plating? But that's just me as a reader.
But it's also, like, these aren't the main characters. They are for this issue, which I think, well, it's interesting. I think that's why I find this issue interesting, because they typically haven't been. They've kind of got more of a spotlight, but it's not like the New Mutants book is about a bunch of jerks. In this one issue, it's about like these I'd say highly confused children going on a children's adventure. That might be like too reductive, but that's kind of the format to me. But with a lot of like weirdness in it, which I think Ayala is pretty good at after this and Children of the Atom. Although Children of the Atom's kind of dragging, so I don't want to. That speaking of how much you want to give him benefit of the doubt, I'm very basically empty there. I hope that doesn't happen again.
Well,
here.
I mean, the thing with Children of Adam is that it's just one story. Here,
Yeah.
I think
It's several,
Ayala
yeah.
is like juggling various subplots, and sometimes certain subplots takes the highlight, and then sometimes it
Yeah.
just recedes to the back. I don't blame that part too much, but I do get where Peter is coming from, that it gets tiresome when it's the same thing over and over and over again, and you don't see progression in the character. You know, whether they become more, you know, a-holy or they become better. So there needs to be a progression here. And I mean, I do feel that there is a little bit of a progression to these kids, at least here, because I think it clearly shows
tired.
that. And I'm tired.
Freya's
Well, I mean,
tired of the kids, tired of
kids.
New Mutants, tired of waiting
Yeah.
for them to progress, tired of
No,
tired of it all.
but it does show that they are not fully under Shadow King's influence.
Yeah.
Some parts of it they are acting, you know, on their own.
I feel like I'm totally repeating my Children of the Atom comments, but there's a lot of nuance here, and I don't want this to go on for maybe like another 2 issues tops. But for now, I've enjoyed it.
But I mean, I do have one question for you guys, for the panel, is that did any of you wonder why Rain was in the hatchery?
Because she's gonna go hold one of the 5 hostage to. I don't know. It was.
I don't know, man. I got nothing.
No, I mean the reason.
Receipts.
No, yeah, because she was conversing with Farouk, and Farouk was telling her that I just want to be sure we all have what we need. And then the next scene, she appears in the hatchery. So
and if anybody's a powerful enough psychic to be able to do something with an egg, you would think that Farouk might be a psychic.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
That is our discussion of New Mutants number 20. Except for Freya has one more comment to make. Freya says, a positive-ish portrayal of mutant coming out and how the community reacts. Who came out?
And they went to get, but the community tried to protect her instead of trying to kill her.
Oh, so none of us really talked about
right.
that island plot, because I don't think it was our favorite plot. But this is Freya's bring your own point, apparently, that it's like nice that the mutants were kind of assuming, oh no, they're gonna go all burn the witch.
Yes.
But instead they were all like, it was actually anti-interventionist, and interventionism is one of our most prevailing themes in all these conversations, where they're like, we can take care of this. Like, thank you for your aid, I guess. And thank you for offering for us to have a gate or whatever. But like, we're a tight-knit community and we're gonna protect our own.
Yeah.
And also
once
just
again,
tiny
Warpath.
Yeah, to Warpath, and tiny bit of positivity. You know, maybe this can quickly bleed into like this is just more boilerplate stuff, but it was nice seeing them doing some hero stuff. You know, like this is a different kind of age for the Lions. So I feel like just you know, we'll be doing some more traditional hero stuff. That can quickly lean boring, as I think Peter feels, but we will see.
All right, y'all, that has been our discussion of New Mutants number 20. If you're looking for our discussions of other X-Men comics, we have caught every single X-Men title since the beginning of X of Swords, and we've given you a deep discussion of each one, so just look elsewhere on the channel. And if you love this kind of stuff, subscribe, leave a comment. If you've got your own point to bring that was not one of the points that we brought, please do leave a comment. So on behalf of Tyler, Harry, Freya, and myself, that's all for this week in X. And the reason we get together to do this every time is why, Tyler?
Because X-Men is better when read together.
That's right. And until we get to read it again together with you, we wish that you are well.